Time now for Homeschooled as we welcome in Mark Malusis and Sal Licata. And guys, this game was tied at 97 with just under 3.5 left to play, but the Sixers outscored the Nets 13-5 to finish the game. Moose, what was missing from the Nets' execution down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, I mean, you went through it with some of the highlights there, Eamon. I mean, the very fact is you had the Philadelphia 76ers, whether it be knocking down big-time shots from the outside and threes, whether it be Embiid, the hustle down low, and the finish at the rim. Philadelphia down the stretch just out-executed the Nets. He had some empty possessions for Brooklyn as well. So that's what it comes down to when you have a Philadelphia 76er teams clearly, obviously have been dealing with the headache of Ben Simmons. But this situation in this game on a Thursday night in Brooklyn, they looked at the scenario as a time to try and get right. Down the stretch, they were clearly the better basketball team.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Maxey big behind the arc for the Sixers down the stretch. And Sal, we just showed it. The Nets 6-8 against teams with winning records. How concerned should Steve Nash be about his team's inconsistency against the better teams in the league?
I would not be concerned yet. It's way too early. Look, I feel like we're saying the same things for the last couple of years about Brooklyn. Yeah, I mean, you don't like losing basketball games, and it's frustrating when they lose the majority of their games to the better teams, but they're still not whole yet. Now they're going to get Kyrie Irving back. That's going to change some things one way or another. And in the postseason, who knows? And that's what it's about. Whether the Nets finish first in the Eastern Conference, third, fourth, doesn't really matter. Their goal is going to be to get that big three together with some of the role players that they've had here now that developed early on in this year and dating back a little bit to last year, and see if they could go win a championship. So maybe mild concerned, if anything, but the Nets haven't been whole just yet. So I'm not going to look at that number and say, well, hold up, this team is not good enough to beat the good teams. I don't believe that. Talent ultimately wins out, and the Nets, if fully healthy and everybody's going full bore here, they're as talented as anybody else in the NBA.
Nets back in action on New Year's Day. Again, we'll have to continue to wait to see Kyrie Irving on the floor. Now to the Knicks, and a day after scoring a Knick career-low 5 points, Julius Randle entered the NBA's health and safety protocols. He'll not play against Oklahoma City on Friday. Under the newly revised quarantine rules under the protocols, Randle could potentially return sometime next week. Now, Moose, obviously Randle has not been the same player he was a year ago, but he's still averaging 19 points and 10 rebounds a game. So how can Tom Thibodeau replace Randle's production?
Well, his production this year, I mean, you can replace it because he hasn't been the same player. I mean, but the impact and the importance of Julius Randle is unquestioned. You're not going to... The Knicks this year needed Julius Randle to be the player he was a year ago. So, I mean, get online when you look at the list. There's no Derrick Rose. He's out for at least another 7 weeks dealing with that ankle injury and ankle surgery. So, you want to say you're going to count on Kemba Walker? I don't think you're going to be able to count on Kemba Walker like that. Are you going to be able to count on R.J. Barrett? I don't know about R.J. Barrett in this scenario. So, you look at this team. We've been talking about the Knicks trying to find an identity. Now you're looking at the best overall player who clearly has been inconsistent this year in Julius Randle. Even if it's for a short period of time, Sal, it's going to be very difficult to replace his impact and his presence on the court.
Yeah, no question about it. It won't be a single guy. I mean, I hate to use that cliche, but it's going to be a bunch of different guys. Whether that means, now, I'm not saying they're going to do this, but moving Obi Toppin to the starting lineup, moving Emmanuel quickly to the starting lineup, getting the most of those two guys, it's a different kind of fashion than what Julius Randle going at his peak would be. R.J. Barrett, I think, would be the one guy who, in singular performance, if he can consistently score, that maybe could replace a little bit with Julius Randle. But they can't. I mean, Julius Randle was their MVP a year ago for a reason. I know this year the production hasn't been there, and that's because the shot has not been there for Julius Randle. But even without him now, you look at it, even with the way he's been playing, they don't have that singular guy that can do it consistently the way that Randle did do it a year ago. That's part of their biggest issue. I know they don't play the same defense as they did a year ago, but without Julius Randle playing at the MVP type level he played at last year, this team just doesn't have it. So it's going to take a cast of characters for the Knicks to try to replace their superstar player in Julius Randle.